My name is Tiffany Seard. I'm 34 years old. 3 weeks ago, my mother looked straight at me and said, "Your sister gets sick every time she sees your face. Pack your things tonight." She said it calmly, like she was reading instructions off a medicine bottle. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I picked up one gray duffel bag I'd owned since college, packed my clothes in less than 5 minutes, and walked out of my parents' house without saying a word. My father stood in the hallway the whole time. He watched me carry the bag past him. He said nothing. For 7 days, nobody spoke to me. No calls. No texts. Nothing. Then the calls started. First my dad. Then my mom. Then my sister. I ignored every single one. And those 7 quiet days changed my life. Not because they hurt me. Because they finally made me see the truth. Before I tell you what happened next, let me take you back to the Thursday night when my mother chose my sister over me for the last time. I was standing at the kitchen sink washing dishes after dinner. Thursday dinners at my parents' house had been a routine for years. Every other week, I came over after work, helped clean up, listened to my mother complain about grocery prices, listened to my father talk about fishing. Normal family stuff. The house smelled like garlic bread and lemon cleaner. The television was playing softly in the living room. Everything looked peaceful. But my sister Jocelyn had been locked in my mother's bedroom for over an hour. I could hear their voices through the wall. Jocelyn talking fast. My mother answering in that soft voice she used whenever Jocelyn had another crisis. I dried my hands carefully on a striped towel. Folded it once. Then twice. That's when the bedroom door opened. My mother walked out first. Her face looked hard. Not angry. Certain. There's a difference. Angry people can still change their minds. Certain people already have. She stopped in front of me. "Your sister says seeing your face makes her physically sick," she said. Flat. Cold. "I need you to pack your things tonight." For a second, I honestly thought I heard her wrong. I looked past her into the hallway. My father stood beside the coat closet with one hand on the wall. His eyes stayed on the floor. "Did you even ask what happened?" I asked. My mother lifted her chin. "I don't need to." That hurt more than the words. Not because she believed Jocelyn. Because she never even considered believing me. I folded the towel one more time. Set it neatly on the counter. Then I walked upstairs. My old bedroom still had shelves filled with college textbooks. The same room I gave up when I was 12 so Jocelyn could have her own space. I pulled my gray duffel bag from the closet. Jeans. Sweaters. Laptop. Toothbrush. Done. 4 minutes. When I came downstairs, my father was still standing in the hallway. Still silent. I walked past him. He had 34 years to speak. Tonight wasn't going to be the night. But the truth is, this story didn't really begin with the duffel bag. It started 3 days earlier. I was helping my father review his bank statement at the dining room table. I handled their finances once a month because numbers stressed him out. That's when I saw the charges. One after another. Boutique clothing websites. Luxury skincare. Designer handbags. $4,200 charged to my parents' shared credit card in less than 3 weeks. Jocelyn had told them she needed the card for business inventory. She was starting another online boutique. Her third business idea in 2 years. I didn't bring it up to embarrass her. I brought it up because my father was retired and living on a fixed income. $4,000 mattered. At dinner that night, I kept my voice calm. "Jocelyn, these charges don't look like business inventory." She froze. Then slowly looked at me. "You went through my purchases?" Dad asked me to balance the account. Her eyes instantly filled with tears. Like a switch flipped. You always do this, she whispered. Do what? Make me look bad. I'm not making you look like anything. The receipts are right there. I can't do this anymore. She shoved her chair back. The sound scraped across the floor. You have no idea how hard I'm trying. Then she ran down the hallway. A second later, the bedroom door slammed. My mother stared at me like I had attacked someone. Jocelyn never needed to yell. Her tears did the work for her. And that pattern had existed my entire life. When I was 12 years old, my mother told me to move into the basement. Jocelyn was 8 and needed her own bedroom for creativity. I remember carrying my blankets downstairs while my father stood in the doorway watching. He raised his hand like he wanted to say something. Then he lowered it and walked away. When I graduated from Virginia Tech at 22 with honors, my parents came to the ceremony. They stayed 10 minutes. Then left because Jocelyn had a headache. A headache. At 28, I became the youngest senior project manager in company history at Lockwell Infrastructure. I called my mother from the parking lot after getting the promotion. I was shaking from excitement. She said, "That's wonderful, honey, but your sister had a terrible day at work. Can I call you back?" She never called back. Every success I had disappeared the moment Jocelyn created another emergency. And I kept believing that if I worked harder, achieved more, became more successful, eventually they would finally notice me. That was the lie I lived with for 22 years. People used to call me strong, reliable, independent. I thought those were compliments. Later I realized they were excuses. Strong meant I could absorb pain quietly. Reliable meant they could depend on me to clean up the emotional messes. Independent meant nobody had to take care of me. My sister, Jocelyn, was different. She was smart. Very smart. But she also understood something dangerous. She understood how to make people rescue her. She knew when to lower her voice. When to let tears fill her eyes. When to look fragile. And my mother loved being needed. After retiring from teaching elementary school, my mother suddenly had an empty house and too much quiet. My father spent his retirement fishing and watching cable news. But my mother needed someone to fix. Someone to save. Jocelyn became that person. Every failed business. Every breakup. Every crisis. It gave my mother purpose. And I became the opposite. I handled my own problems. Paid my own rent. Built my own career. I didn't need saving. So my mother built unspoken family rules. Never question Jocelyn. Never bring up money. And if there's conflict, Tiffany adjusts. Because Tiffany can handle it. I used to wear that role proudly. Until I finally understood something. In my family, strong really meant expendable. My father wasn't cruel. That's important. Gary Hale spent 40 years fixing pipes and running his plumbing business. He was patient. Quiet. Gentle. But inside our house, his favorite sentence was always the same. Don't upset your mother. He said it when I moved to the basement. He said it when my graduation got cut short. He said it any time I tried talking about how unfair things felt. Don't upset your mother. As if her comfort mattered more than everything else. I remember one night when I was 14. Jocelyn knocked a ceramic bowl off the counter. Then blamed me. My mother grounded me for a week. That night my father came downstairs. I heard him stop outside my bedroom door. I watched his shadow under the crack. He lifted his hand. I heard his knuckles touch the wood. Then he walked away. That memory stayed with me for years. Because my father loved me. I knew he did. But love without action can still leave someone lonely. The night I packed my bag, I drove 40 minutes in complete silence. No radio. No music. Just tires on the road. When I reached my apartment, Marcus was standing in the kitchen. He saw the duffel bag before he saw my face. Marcus is a lawyer. He notices details. He didn't ask questions right away. "I'll make coffee," he said quietly. I sat at the kitchen table. And for a moment, my hand rested on my stomach. 10 weeks. I was 10 weeks pregnant. Nobody in my family knew yet. Only Marcus. Sitting there in that quiet kitchen, staring at the bag on the floor, I made a promise. My child would never spend their life wondering if they were enough. I turned my phone off. For 7 days, I disappeared. What I didn't know was that everything back at my parents' house was already falling apart. 2 weeks before the fight, Jocelyn volunteered to organize my parents' 40th anniversary party. She announced it proudly during Sunday brunch. "Let me handle everything," she said. My mother looked thrilled. Nobody mentioned that every event Jocelyn ever organized eventually became someone else's responsibility. Usually mine. But this wasn't a small dinner. 63 guests. A private room at an Italian restaurant. Invitations. Slideshows. Decorations. Catering. Real work. Now she was drowning. A week before the fight, my Aunt Ruth called me unexpectedly. Ruth was my mother's younger sister. A community nurse. Quiet. Observant. We weren't very close growing up because my mother always kept distance between us. "Tiffany," Ruth said softly, "your mother is doing to you exactly what your grandmother did to me." At the time, I didn't fully understand. But those words stayed in my head. 3 days later, I was standing in my parents' kitchen being told to leave. And suddenly everything started making sense. The first 3 days after leaving were silent. No calls. No messages. Nothing. I still went to work every morning. Still attended meetings. Still reviewed project timelines. Nobody around me knew my family had exploded. That's the thing about people trained to absorb pain. We get very good at looking normal. On the third night, Marcus found me sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open. I had created a spreadsheet. Columns. Dates. Events. Who said what? What happened next? Not because I planned revenge. Because I needed clarity. I manage infrastructure projects for a living. When something keeps failing, you trace the pattern. So I traced mine. Age 12. Basement. Age 22. Graduation. Age 28. Promotion ignored. Every entry led to the same result. Jocelyn struggled. My mother defended her. I absorbed the damage. The cycle reset. Day 4, my father finally called. I almost ignored it. But a part of me still hoped. "Hey, Tiff," he said carefully. I could hear the dishwasher running behind him. The television playing. Normal house sounds. "So, your mother's upset." I waited. "The anniversary party is coming up and we need to figure out the seating chart." I stared at the wall. "Is that why you called?" Pause. "We need to talk about this. You watched Mom throw me out and said nothing. That's not fair." "Exactly." I hung up. Marcus stood quietly in the doorway. "He called about seating arrangements?" I nodded. That was the moment something inside me truly broke. Not from cruelty. From realization. They weren't worried about me. They were worried about appearances. On day 6, my mother finally left a voicemail. Marcus accidentally played it while grabbing my phone. "Tiffany, this has gone on long enough. Your father and I want you at the anniversary party. Jocelyn is willing to put this behind her. We need to move forward as a family." 43 seconds. No apology. No concern. Just instructions. I listened twice. Then looked at Marcus. "She's not apologizing," I said. She's assigning you a role, he answered. Exactly. Show up. Smile. Protect the family image. The next night, Jocelyn texted. 4 long paragraphs. I know you're hurting. I'm hurting too. Mom and Dad are devastated. The party won't feel right without you. Can we please move past this? 4 paragraphs. 3 mentions of the party. 0 mention of what she actually said about me. I added the screenshots to my spreadsheet. Then, later that night, I finally called Aunt Ruth. She answered immediately. I wondered when you'd call, she said. I asked what she meant about our grandmother. Ruth sighed softly. Your mother was the favorite child, she explained. I was the quiet one. The responsible one. Our mother protected Linda every time. And now Linda protects Jocelyn the same way. I closed my eyes. The pattern stretched back generations. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I tried years ago, Ruth admitted. Your mother cut me off for 5 years. Then she said something I never forgot. The difference between us is I waited too long to stand up for myself. Don't make the same mistake. A few days later, the anniversary invitation arrived. Cream-colored paper. Gold letters. Fancy enough to feel expensive. Inside was a note from my mother. We want the whole family there. This is bigger than any argument. Love, Mom. Marcus read it over my shoulder. They're not inviting you back into the family, he said quietly. They're inviting you back into the picture. He was right. If I didn't attend, people would ask questions. And my mother hated questions she couldn't control. Over the next week, relatives started contacting me. Aunt Helen. Cousin Derek. Others. Every conversation sounded the same. Be the bigger person. Family is family. Don't ruin the anniversary. Not one person asked what happened. Not one person asked if I was okay. They just wanted the performance to continue. One Saturday morning, I sat at the kitchen table studying my spreadsheet. 37 rows. 12 years of patterns. Marcus walked in and read quietly over my shoulder. This isn't a family system, he said. It's a broken cycle. That same afternoon, Ruth called again. And everything changed. Your mother has been telling people you're having marriage problems, she said. The room went silent. I gripped the kitchen counter. She would rather people think your marriage is failing than admit she threw her daughter out. Something hot and sharp settled in my chest. Not sadness. Not pain. Clarity. She could ignore me. She could reject me. But she would not rewrite my life. That night, Marcus and I sat across from each other at the dinner table. I'm going to the party, I said. He nodded slowly. For them? No, I answered. I rested my hand on my stomach. For me. And for the baby. 5 days before the party, Jocelyn called again. This time her voice sounded sharper. More nervous. Mom needs you there, she said. You owe her. That word hit hard. Oh. I had spent my whole life paying emotional debts I never created. I'll be there, I said calmly. Silence. Then confusion. You will? I said I'll be there. She didn't know what to do with that answer. Every conflict in our family followed the same script. I pushed back. She cried. Mom rescued her. But this time I skipped the entire performance. The morning of the party, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror feeling strangely calm. I chose a charcoal blazer and simple makeup. Professional. Controlled. Not dramatic. Marcus wore a navy suit. As we drove to the restaurant, neither of us talked much. The parking lot was already half full when we arrived. Through the restaurant window, I spotted Aunt Ruth sitting near the entrance. She gave me one small nod. Inside, the private dining room glowed with gold decorations and soft lighting. Round tables. A large cake. A giant banner reading 40 years. Jocelyn moved around the room acting like an event planner. Smiling. Hugging relatives. Directing servers. My mother saw me first. Relief flashed across her face. Then worry. Because she immediately noticed something. I wasn't nervous. The slideshow started after dinner. Wedding photos. Vacation photos. Birthday photos. Picture after picture of Jocelyn. I counted. 46 photos total. I appeared in only 3. One where half my face was cut off. One where I stood at the edge of a group. One where I was 6 years old hiding behind my father. Even now, I barely existed in family memories. Some relatives noticed. I saw the looks. The confusion. Then my mother stood and thanked Jocelyn for organizing such a beautiful event. She never mentioned me once. Finally, dessert plates were cleared. Someone handed Jocelyn a microphone. She smiled softly. I just want to say how grateful I am for our family, she began. The room quieted. Mom and Dad taught me what love looks like. They always believed in me, even during hard times. Her voice cracked perfectly. Even when not everyone in the family made things easy. Her eyes flicked toward me. Several relatives noticed. But family is about forgiveness, she continued. And I'm so happy my sister is here tonight so we can all move forward together. People lifted their glasses. Smiles spread across the room. My mother dabbed tears from her eyes. Jocelyn had just rewritten the entire story. In her version, she was generous. I was difficult. And everyone else was supposed to clap. I set down my untouched water glass. Then I stood up. I didn't take the microphone. I didn't need one. I'd like to add something, I said. The room instantly fell silent. My mother froze. My father lowered his glass. Jocelyn said family is about forgiveness, I continued calmly. I agree. But forgiveness requires honesty. Nobody moved. 3 weeks ago, my mother told me to pack my things and leave her house because Jocelyn said looking at my face made her sick. A ripple spread across the room. Not noise. Shock. Some of you were told I'm having marriage problems, I said. That's false. My marriage is fine. I glanced at Marcus. He stayed perfectly still beside me. I was removed from my parents' home because I questioned $4,000 of personal charges made on their credit card. Jocelyn's face turned white. My mother stood quickly. Tiffany, this is not the place. You chose the place, Mom. My voice never rose. You invited 63 people here and created a false story instead of having one honest conversation. The room stayed completely silent. Listening silence. Not uncomfortable. Focused. When I was 12, I was moved into the basement so Jocelyn could have my room. When I graduated college, my parents left early because Jocelyn had a headache. When I earned my biggest career promotion, my mother ended the phone call to comfort Jocelyn after a bad day at work. I paused. Every time my sister struggled, she was protected. Every time I succeeded, I was ignored. Then Ruth stood up. Slowly. Calmly. She's telling the truth, Ruth said. The room turned toward her. I watched the same pattern happen when Linda and I were children. Our mother chose favorites too. My mother looked stunned. Uncle Ray finally spoke from across the room. Is this true, Linda? My mother opened her mouth. Then closed it. She looked at Jocelyn. Jocelyn stared at the floor. No answer came. I didn't come here to ruin an anniversary, I said softly. I came because everyone in this room deserves the truth. Jocelyn suddenly stood. You're lying, she shouted. But her voice sounded different now. Not controlled. Not practiced. Scared. And for the first time in her life, nobody rushed to save her. Nobody told me to calm down. Nobody defended her. The room simply watched. Uncle Ray leaned forward. "Then answer the question," he said. Jocelyn looked around desperately. Searching for rescue. Searching for sympathy. Searching for the safety net that always appeared. This time it didn't. She grabbed her purse and walked toward the door. Her heels clicked shakily across the floor. My mother hurried after her. The door slammed shut behind them. I sat down slowly. Marcus rested one steady hand on my knee. My father remained seated across the room. For 34 years, my father always followed my mother. Always. But this time, he stayed. Later that night, Ruth told me what happened outside. My mother blamed Jocelyn immediately. "Look what your drama caused," she snapped. Jocelyn fired back. "You told me she makes you sick. You started this." Then Ruth stepped between them. "You're doing it again, Linda," she said. My mother spun around angrily. "Stay out of this." "I stayed out of it for 30 years, Ruth answered. "That was my mistake." Then she looked directly at Jocelyn. "Your mother doesn't protect you because she loves you more. She protects you because she needs you to stay dependent on her." For once, nobody argued. Because deep down, everyone knew it was true. Back inside the restaurant, many guests quietly left. The untouched cake sat near the wall. The slideshow had been turned off. My father eventually walked over and sat beside me. We stayed silent for almost a full minute. Then he finally said the words I had waited my whole life to hear. "I knew." I looked at him. "I always knew it wasn't fair." "Then why didn't you say something?" He rubbed his forehead. "Because standing up to your mother was harder than staying quiet. And I chose the easier thing every time." His eyes filled with tears. Not dramatic tears. Real ones. "I failed you," he whispered. My chest tightened. Not because it fixed anything. Because it was finally honest. "I hear you, Dad," I said softly. "But hearing it now doesn't erase everything." He nodded. For once, he didn't defend himself. That mattered. The week after the party felt strange. Relatives started contacting me again. But differently this time. Cousin Megan texted. "I saw the slideshow. 3 photos? I'm sorry, Tiffany." Uncle Ray called. "I should have noticed sooner," he admitted. Even Aunt Helen apologized. "I asked your mother what happened," she said quietly. She couldn't deny it. For the first time, people were actually looking at the truth instead of avoiding it. Then, 9 days after the party, I received an email from Jocelyn. Only 2 lines. "I don't know who I am without this family protecting me. I hate you for making me see that." I read it 3 times. It wasn't an apology. But it was the first honest thing my sister had ever said. That Sunday morning, I wrote an email to my parents. Not a text. An email. Because I wanted every word clear. I told them I loved them. Then I explained my boundaries. I would not be around Jocelyn until she fully acknowledged what happened. No more discussing my life with relatives behind my back. No more rewriting stories. And if my boundaries were ignored, I would leave immediately. Then I wrote one final sentence. "This is about protecting me, Marcus, and the child I'm carrying." I stared at those words for a long time. My parents were finding out about the pregnancy through an email about boundaries. Not exactly the joyful announcement I once imagined. But it was honest. And honesty mattered now. I hit send. 3 months later, the nursery walls were painted soft green. A crib stood beside the window. Wooden birds hung from a mobile overhead. Marcus built it himself. I was 16 weeks pregnant. my stomach finally showed. Morning sickness had faded. Things felt quieter. Safer. Ruth visited every Saturday. She brought casseroles and baby advice and stories from her years as a nurse. She became the family connection I should have had all along. My father started calling once a week. Short conversations. Careful ones. He asked about the baby. About work. About Marcus. He never defended the past anymore. And that mattered too. One afternoon, my mother sent a card. Plain yellow envelope. Inside was a simple congratulations card. Underneath the printed message, she wrote only 2 words. I'm trying. It wasn't enough. Not yet. But it was more honesty than I had ever received before. Jocelyn stayed silent. But I learned something important about silence. Sometimes silence is punishment. Sometimes it's reflection. I chose to believe hers was reflection. One evening, I stood inside the nursery while a spring breeze turned the wooden bird slowly overhead. Marcus wrapped an arm around my shoulder. I looked around the room. No history lives here, I whispered. No favoritism. No emotional debts. No invisible children. Just space for something new. Then my eyes landed on the closet shelf. The gray duffel bag sat folded neatly in the corner. The same bag I packed in 4 minutes that Thursday night. I didn't throw it away. It reminded me of something important. There was once a little girl who moved into a basement without complaining. A young woman who graduated with honors and still felt unseen. A daughter who spent years trying to earn love she should have received freely. But she was never the problem. She was enough from the very beginning. She just needed silence long enough to finally hear it. The woman who walked out of her parents' house carrying one gray duffel bag is not the same woman standing in that nursery. That woman spent years begging to be chosen. This woman finally chose herself. And the child growing inside me will never have to earn a place in our family. She will be loved because she exists. Not because she performs. Not because she stays quiet. Not because she sacrifices herself to keep everyone comfortable. That pattern ends with me. And this new story begins here. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories like this. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my place?